Hey again, it's Christina from Sunshine and Flora. So tulip season is officially coming to an end. I have just a few tulips left in the fridge and I have 5 bouquets going out today and then they will all be done. Everything out in the garden is done blooming, and so it's time to clear all of those leaves out and get that ground ready for planting for summer flowers. But anyway, I thought since we're transitioning over into the next step of the cut flower season, this would be a perfect time to do a video with you guys to share my favorite tulip varieties that I grew this year. Now, if you saw my last video, it was my big Mother's Day video. I had a ton of tulips go out of all different varieties. I definitely have some favorites for the year, and I also have my order for 2024 placed, and so I will be doing a separate video to share with you guys where I ordered all of my tulips from and all the varieties that I ordered for 2024. But in this video, I just want to share those select few varieties that were definitely my favorites from the year. So I have my list here, and on this list there are 8 varieties. Some of these I grew last year and absolutely loved, and some of these are new to me this year. It's always so fun to try out different new varieties every year. Definitely one went way beyond my expectation, and it was a new one, and so I didn't have it on my order for next year. Somehow I missed it, so I had to track down a source that had that variety just so I could get more for next year, and I doubled what I planted for this year. But it's always fun to try out new varieties and discover new things. With my cut flower tulips, I try to grow a variety of colors, and I also try to grow a variety of types. So within the tulips, you have the standard single tulip, which most everyone is used to seeing. That's usually what people, normally grow in their home garden or you see at the grocery store. But there's a lot of other varieties too of tulips. There are double tulips that are sometimes called peony tulips, and so they open up with all these multiple petals and they're a big full bloom. There are fringed tulips that are jagged on the edges, and that gives a really unique look. There are parrot tulips that open very different from all other varieties. They flap open, and sometimes the flowers are huge on these. Those are very unique, and I always try to grow at least 2 to 3 varieties of the parrot tulips every year. So I like to grow a mix of all of those varieties just so that my customers can see all the different kinds of specialty tulips, and they will know that when they're getting bouquets from me, they are not just a standard normal tulip that they can buy in other places. Anyway, enough rambling on. Let's start going through my list of my favorites. So the first one on the list is my all-time favorite for the year. It totally blew me away. I had never grown it before, and this is the one that I had to order double for of next year, and it is Orange Princess. This tulip was so beautiful. It's a double tulip. It's orange in color, but on the outside of the flower, it actually has some purple or plum striping. It was so awesome. Now this tulip is not super tall in height. It only gets, I think, it says technically like 12 to 14 inches. Now when you harvest tulips for cut flowers, you pull the bulb and all, and so when you're doing that, you're getting extra stem length that helps. But this tulip, even though it was a little shorter than others, was so worth growing. When I included this in bouquets for people, they commented back to me like days later, "What is that tulip?" They just thought it was so awesome. I made a little bouquet for myself with about 6 or 7 and stuck them in a mason jar to have at my house. And it by far was the most beautiful one that I had grown this year. So I'm doubling how many I'm ordering for next year, and I cannot wait to plant that one again. So the next one on my list was also a new one for me this year, and that was Akebono. I hope I'm saying that right. It's Akebono. And this is a pale yellow tulip with a little bit of some pink colorings, mostly pale yellow. When this was blooming out in the garden or getting ready to bloom, I could tell that it was going to have really good height on it. In fact, it was probably one of the taller tulips that I grew this year. But the heads on it, and maybe it was just in my garden, were really small. And I thought, oh, I don't know if this one is going to work for me or something might be wrong with it. Well, I was totally wrong. While the heads on it were really small, they were almost layered, but when they opened, the blooms got huge and they were absolutely beautiful and probably one of my favorites of the yellows that I grew. It was really surprising. And so I don't know if that's how it always grows because it was the first year that I have grown it, but it blew me away and it is definitely on my list for next year. The next two are single tulips, and like I said, I like to incorporate single tulips into my bouquets just for variety. Sometimes they last a little longer, but also when you order single tulips, of course, those bulbs are just a little bit cheaper. So it helps on the budget a little bit, but I do like them for variety. So the first one on my list is Salmon Impression. I like anything that's apricot or salmon. This is a large single tulip. I harvest it just when it's showing a little bit of color on the very top of the bloom. They last forever in the fridge. The stem length is really long and it's just a really pretty color to add into bouquets. This one was a favorite of the singles that I grew. The other single that I grew is probably on everybody else's favorite single list, and that's Queen of the Night, just because it is such a unique color. It's a really, really deep purple, almost black, and they, again, have really tall stem length and last a really long time. So Queen of the Night I have grown before, and I will grow every year just because it's a really good one to have in your cut flower garden. So the next one on my list is a fringed tulip, and I loved this one this year. It's called Cummins. It's a purplish lavender tulip, and then the fringe on the edges are actually a white. There are not very many tulips that are that lavender color, and so not only did the color add in variety to my bouquets, but the fringe added in. This was a later blooming tulip in my garden, and so this is one that I harvested only for Mother's Day, and I tried to put it in a lot of my mixed bouquets. And when I was at my large event last weekend, lots of people commented on the color, and then it had the white fringing. They didn't even realize it was a tulip, so it was something very unique, but it also grew really well, and it was one of my longer lasting tulips in my bouquets. So that was definitely a favorite, and I definitely had it on my order list for next year. Okay, so the next one on my list is a really common tulip for cut flowers, and that is Columbus. It's a really vibrant fuchsia pink with white edging. I know a lot of people grow this one. It tends to be a little bit shorter of a variety, but it is really beautiful. The pink color with the white edging is a really different look, and it just grows really, really well. I found it was a little bit shorter, but it still worked in my bouquets. It worked really great in my vase arrangements that I used because those I could use a shorter tulip for, so I put a lot of them in there. I found that I definitely needed to harvest it when it was closed before it was opening, because Columbus, I found that when I put it in water and then set it out, probably was one of the faster opening tulips compared to a lot of my others. But it was very long lasting and just a really good growing one in the garden. And like I said, I know that it's a really popular one and a lot of people grow this one. So it is definitely on my list for next year. All right, I have two more left on my list. The first one I grew last year and grew again this year and had really good luck with it, and it's called Flaming Flag. It's a single tulip, but it's mostly white in color, and then in the center of each petal there is a bright purple stripe that goes up the center. I just really love the look of it. It grows good. It has pretty good stem length, but I found that it was probably one of the longest lasting tulips out of everything that I grew. And for that reason and its unique look, it was one of my favorites again this year. And then the last one on my list is a Parrot tulip, and that was the Super Parrot. This one not only is different because it's that Parrot tulip, but it's different because it's of its coloring. It is green and white, and you know, it's really hard to find green flowers. Usually we use greenery and foliage for the green in bouquets. This bloom actually is green, and I loved this one. This grew amazing. I think almost every bulb that I planted of the Super Parrot pretty much came to flower. It lasted a long time. I harvested these when they were showing their full color, but before they opened. They stored great in the fridge for at least 2 weeks for me. And then when I added them into bouquets or the arrangements, they got taller and bigger and opened beautifully, and they also are one of the longest lasting ones in all of my bouquets. One of the crazy things about tulips is they will continue to grow in their vase. So for example, if you take your tulips out and make an arrangement and then have it sit out overnight, the next morning when you come in, you will notice the tulips not only stand up a little straighter, but they're taller. So I always tell my customers, don't be afraid to cut off the bottoms as they continue to grow. If you want to maintain the shape of your bouquet, don't be afraid to give them new cuttings. They'll continue to grow in the vase for a couple days or more, and it's just crazy. So when I'm making my arrangements, I have to take into account how they will continue to lengthen, especially if I'm mixing them with other flowers such as daffodils. I'll put the tulips a little bit lower in the arrangement because I know the next day they may grow above those daffodils. It's kind of crazy. So that is one good thing. If you're harvesting a little bit shorter of a tulip, you know that it may get longer. All right, so that is my list of my favorite tulips from this year. Like I said, I have my whole order put together for 2024. That'll probably be the next video that you guys see. I will share with you all of the varieties I'll be growing for next year. I'll talk a little bit about which ones I grew this year and what I thought of them. And then I'm also going to share all of the vendors that I ordered through too. I know a lot of you are getting ready or are in the process of ordering your bulbs for next year. So I will make sure to get that video filmed and posted soon so that it will be helpful for you guys. And it's always just fun to share what I'm planning for next year already. This year, I think I grew about 3,000 to 4,000 bulbs. I have way more than that ordered for next year. I just never have enough between, the Mother's Day orders, the regular orders, and now florist orders. I just continually need more. Next year, I also am going to try winter forcing for the tulips. So stay tuned for more information on that as well. But anyway, that's gonna wrap up this video. Stay tuned for a lot more. Hope you're having a good start to your spring, and we'll see you soon.